Hello, and you have tuned into another segment of That Girl Jenna Karasoa. Today is Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. We are doing our Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High book discussion. We're doing a Wednesday Business and Tech Talks series. So we get into discussions regarding technology, what's going on in the world, how to have a more effective business. So this is what we're doing right here. Let me tune in to Anchor FM really fast, give them a quick little intro, but I did want to just touch base and let everyone know that we're still doing videos. Unfortunately, they haven't been uploading as fast as they want, but we're recording them, so this is why we're here. So let me go ahead and give us hello to our podcast. Hey there, you've tuned into another segment of Jenna Karasoa. We are doing our Wednesday Business and Tech Talks. It is May 25th, 2022, and we're going through the book Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. So thank you so much for joining us, tuning in, for any loyal listeners out there. And as always, I apologize if I waste your time, and I can only hope that you take something from this. If not, I do sincerely apologize. A little quick intro for that, and we're just going to jump straight into this discussion for today. All right, so we have kind of a lot to cover, more than I usually like to talk about, because I like to keep it pretty brief, so it's going to be a little bit more lengthier. Hold on, sorry. Okay, so we're jumping straight into chapter 4. Again, a little bit more lengthier because there's a lot of content, but I'll try to be as brief as possible. So the very beginning of chapter 4 starts out with a quote. "I have known 1,000 scamps, but I never met one who considered himself so. Self-knowledge isn't so common." And the quote is by an individual, Koida. It's O-U-I-D-A. So chapter 4 is titled, Learn to Look, How to Notice When Safety is at Risk. And when we're regarding, the authors are talking about safety in conversation, and this is the best construct of human nature when you are in a setting where you can have a conversation without the fear or threat of physical violence. So I have to take this section very slowly and be very, very cautious and very, very tentative as I go over these details. Again, this isn't designed for the availability or the environment for a conversation to be held, usually professional setting, within proximity to close loved ones that you can trust. So please use discernment with these type of discussions. If you need support, if you need counseling, if you need a third party, pastor, minister, a chaplain, someone else to go with you in a conversation like this, I would encourage you to do that for everyone's physical, mental, and well-being. So for this discussion, though, the major talking points we're going to be going over is knowing when something is safe, a conversation, or when it's becoming unhealthy. There is the silence and violence as well. And when we talk about violence, it's not physical. It's the emotional, the trauma, or the tearing of the brain. So we'll go into a little bit more detail here. So to give you more understanding of what we talk about when we say violence and keeping things safe. We like to keep things safe. That's the objective. Okay, so again, jumping straight, I'm just going to go over my notes because this is a pretty lengthy discussion. So first I recommend is what to look for, and to look for the cues when the conversation is becoming unhealthy. And you have to do this process called dual processing. It's you essentially are able to conduct yourself in the conversation, still look outside and see what else is going on outside of the emotions and feelings that you're experiencing. And there's 3 basic concepts. Like again, notice when a moment a conversation becomes crucial, sign a person feels unsafe, and learning your style and recognizing it. So signs that a person feels unsafe. Those usually, the response that the authors give is they usually respond in anger, They're controlling, they try to push their point across to you or their opinion, different subtle ways, not necessarily yelling, but they're very convincing and pushing a point. And then sometimes people completely shut down, they're fearful, they're quiet, they're not, nothing's getting solved, or they're avoiding the situation, and that's furthering damage to whatever the condition is that has brought up the crucial conversation. So those are two extremes. We also, like I said, how do you look for problems? They say that you really have to reprogram your mind when you first pick up on, like, hey, my heart's racing, or my voice getting heightened. When you first realize those symptoms, that's when you need to reprogram your mind, notice physical changes, heart racing, blurred vision, and then go back to, in past chapters we talked about the start with heart. What is it that you're trying to accomplish for yourself and the entire relationship? And again, look for the safety signs that people are afraid. Sometimes it can be the person's getting louder, they're starting to attack your character. If they don't feel that their idea is being heard, they're going to defend their idea a lot more, or they're going to just be quiet and not give any ideas, and everyone loses, especially if they have a great idea. And this can be very damaging when a person has a lot of potential and they have so much to offer, but they're constantly feeling as if their opinions aren't going to be respected or no one's going to take them seriously. So in the long run, people actually end up missing out on a lot of great opportunities because someone did not feel comfortable enough to share their ideas, which could have helped propel, many other lives surrounding that person. So when a person feels safe, they can say anything. Nothing kills flow of meaning like fear, the authors have written. When you fear that you're not being heard, you push too hard, or you shut down. So again, with that, I wanted to take this very, very, very cautiously. I said in the very beginning, we talk about when it is a good opportunity or a good time to talk about something. So the idea of feeling unsafe and being afraid, this is very difficult because there are situations, obviously, when people don't have that freedom to do so. So I put my own personal note in here. It's not at all from this discussion from the book, but again, disclaimer. So when you're a new creation in Christ, that fear can be removed when you are perfected in love. And it also says when a person feels safe, they can be given negative feedback and they can handle it. They won't have the explosive temper. They won't be flying off the handle, or they won't shut down. They'll feel like I can talk. So, and that reference, though, is from 1 John 4:8. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love. So, again, side note, talking about Christ, His forgiveness, creating a new person in you, it's very important that when you're overcoming obstacles like this in life, this is why the mental power and mental fortitude is very, very important when dealing with these things. And it always goes back to start with heart. Checking yourself, examining yourself, knowing how you respond to things. So again, there's situations when you shouldn't say anything. So please use discernment and use caution. We don't want anyone to experience physical violence, but we do need you to be mentally prepared for these things that could happen and cause the mental trauma, the mental tearing. So when we continue on, though, different things to look out for when you're dealing with potential anger. Do not let safety problems lead you astray. When others begin to feel unsafe, they start doing nasty things. Hey, they're feeling unsafe. I need to do something, make it safer. And that's, again, when people defend themselves and their causes aggressively. And then, where else? Sorry, that's something else I wanted to share with you. So, I think for this segment right here, I'll wrap it up. Just, again, looking for the cues, understanding why it's important. What do you need to see in order to catch problems before they come too severe? Watch out for the different conditions. Just knowing the physical signs, behavior, emotional. is a person feeling safe? Are they starting to get defensive? Are they starting to feel fearful? So with that, I'll go ahead and take a quick pause in between so I can get ready for this next subject where it's going to be a little bit more to take in. So let me go ahead and put the little note here. Segment. So much to discuss, but it's also good that we have the opportunity to talk about these things and get more clarity and understanding. So, yes, watching for safety. So we can focus on what we're actually trying to say and do. Okay, so continuing on, it's important that we also stay alert, understanding what it is that is going on. So we said before, stepping out of the conversation, observing, using the dual processing technique. And the next section, silence and violence. So there's 3 different types of silence techniques that they bring up here in the book. And some of it is masking, sarcasm, sugarcoating, or couching. And I did not look up couching, but sugarcoating is not being fully honest about a problem, kind of just making light of it, not getting the actual issues resolved. Sarcasm, of course, this can be disrespectful or flippant or short, or something that is just designed to kind of cut the person. And then masking is not being sincere or real about your actual feelings, kind of just in a way of avoiding the situation. You're not really being your full self. So I have a couple of examples. And then withdrawing, pulling out of the conversation, you know, just completely shutting down, checking out. So with these techniques, with the fear and the silence, nothing gets accomplished, problems aren't resolved, and resentment and anger can actually rise and become a bigger issue down the road. And then the different forms of verbal, in the book they just call it violence, but I added the verbal aspect in the notes only because we need to understand that there is physical violence and repercussions that can come up, but then just the emotional one is enough, which is essentially the tearing of the brain, trauma. So with this one's a little bit more aggressive, the controlling, domineering the conversation. It doesn't even have to be yelling. It's not a person being angry, like, it's just, sometimes it could be a very simple, example they gave here. It says, controlling consists of coercing others to thinking of your way, dominating the conversation, cutting others off, overstating, speaking in generalizations or, absolutes, or being hyperbolous, exaggerating things, using directive questions to control, or else I'm just changing the subject often so the person can't keep up to discuss anything because you're just trying to avoid it. So they have this example here. There's not a person in the world who hasn't bought one of these. They're the perfect gift. Just being like really aggressive and overbearing, overly confident. And then another one that's a little bit more violent, or it seems subtle, but it's actually can be very destructive. It's just simply labeling. Putting a label on people or ideas so we can dismiss them under a general stereotype or category, which is pretty much an easier form of like dismissing or not giving any credit to someone, because it's just easier to just throw them in a category and say, yeah, you don't have to think about it any further. And again, causes the mental harm to the person who's the recipient of that, and they do have to deal with it. So it's very damaging. So when the example, it says, your ideas are practically Neanderthal. Any thinking person would follow my plan. So the idea is being labeled as Neanderthal, ancient, not relevant, archaic, if you will. And yeah, I put down. So, and then also the third one for the violent form of communication is attacking, which is, a person's character, going towards that, maybe even making a threat or withholding something, with the specifically doing that with the objective of causing harm, saying things, well, I'm not going to do it this way, you're going to miss out on this. So The last section that they have here is like, look for your style under stress. There's different ways to determine, how you respond to anger. The quiz is in the book, so if you're interested in getting a copy, you can take it. I personally have not. They have an online way of measuring, which is, they said, is easier. So some of the questions that they ask, true or false, I have put off returning phone calls or emails because I simply didn't want to deal with the person who sent them. Or number 6, when I've got something tough to bring up, sometimes I offer weak or insecure compliments to soften the blow. When others make points that seem stupid to me, I sometimes let them know without holding back at all. Okay, question 11. Sometimes when things get heated, I move from arguing against other points to saying things that might hurt them personally. There's a lot of questions. I'm going to jump to question 30. When others hesitate to share their views, I do whatever I can to make it safe for them to speak honestly. So, it sounds pretty accurate for me. And the last one is, I get frustrated sometimes at how long it takes for groups of people to make decisions because too many people are involved. So that's a good question to ask. So I'm going to just jump back really fast. A little golden nugget, as some people like to call it. When a person is in their during a conversation right now, it's important again to look for safety and then be curious, which is crucial here because it's better to be curious instead of being angry or frightened. You're starting to search for answers. You want to get the conclusion. You want to figure out what's going on with yourself, with the persons, people you're dealing with. So be curious as opposed to angry and frightened. And honestly, that's kind of how I've been able to cope with so many problems in life, is instead of me staying with my feelings, feeling uncomfortable, mad, angry, or sad, depressed, I did more research. I got into it. And I'm like, why am I feeling this way? And I intentionally went out of my way to not feel a certain way until I understood and got clarity. And it was a process, but totally worth it. And also the fear aspect, being able to talk and not worry about the repercussions. It's been a journey, it's been a process, and it's not going to be the same for every person, and probably in some situations may not be wise to do so, but know that there is healing, there is power, definitely in the power of Christ to overcome these obstacles and hurdles, whether it be emotional, physical, or spiritual challenges that's keeping a conversation from happening and from having it in a safe environment where people can feel comfortable to express their ideas. So let me go ahead and get ready for the conclusion and give me a moment. So I'm going to keep this one a little bit brief just because in the conclusion I can add some more to these things. Segment 2. Okay. Okay, so let's just go ahead and just jump straight to the conclusion. Some things to look out for. Sorry, I got this quiz over here. So, to break from this insidious cycle, learn to look, the authors say. So I have a couple of bullet points here. Look for content and conditions. For when things become crucial, look out for safety problems. To see if others are moving towards silence or violence, and for outbreaks of your style under stress. So, it's a little bit more detail here. I'm going to talk about the score if you want to take the quiz. So the importance of feeling comfortable and safe. You can get a lot more information out of someone, if they believe that the person had their best interests in mind, if their feelings are respected, other person's opinion, you felt safe receiving feedback, someone that you were engaging with, you trusted, and their motives and their ability. You didn't need to defend yourself. This is where, conversations and productivity thrives when the flow of exchanging of ideas is able to continue. So it says the downsides of feeling unsafe is you go blind, you can't think, you're pretty much in kind of, fight or flight, survival mode. Your peripheral vision is kind of actually narrows. And when you are feeling threatened, you scarcely can see beyond what's right in front of you. So it's very, very, again, important that a person can feel safe in their mind. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to take this very, very cautiously too, is because if you have a person who has endured past abuse and severe trauma and people taking advantage of them, lying to them perpetually, and you are expecting to have a conversation with them, you have to realize that though the external may look great, a person may be carrying themselves well, they may be having, the nice suit or dress or whatever ensemble they're wearing, they may have the perfect appearance, like, hey, I got this together. But when you actually try to talk with them and try to get any information at them and they're shutting down and they're quiet, or they're trying to defend their position or push their point aggressively, those are indications that a person is not feeling safe. And again, I'm saying earlier in a different segment, it might be wise to get a third person in there, to get a counselor, a doctor, a pastor, a chaplain, spiritual guide, leader, life coach, someone, a third person in there, if this conversation could potentially lead to physical violence, or if the person is unable to get out of an emotional, mental constraint where they can't even think to get past this point. Because there's so many things that could cause a person to get locked up in an emotional fear, where, again, this is not from the book. Sorry, I have to say, this is my tidbit, my information. I'm trying to contribute to this. Why I do these discussions is because it's great that we can have these books here and to get information out and how to live our lives more effectively and productively with love, peace, and unity and all that good stuff. But let's be real, not every person is going to feel as safe as they need to in order to get their ideas out there, to get their voices heard. And if you're dealing with a person who's very, very aggressive and angry, this might be like, hey, they don't feel very comfortable. And it's not that they're angry or mad. It actually could just be genuinely they're legit afraid. They don't want their ideas to be rejected. They don't want to get turned down. They don't want to hear another no. They're, have been told too many times, and now they're just the way that they are. And you, the person receiving this, needs to be able to, that's why the book is here, to see past that and create an environment where the person wants to open and discuss and feels comfortable and safe and it can trust you. So that is why we go through this. Especially why I'm so adamant about learning more about these techniques. So, and also I wanted to say that one of the expressions or terms I use, it's a form of social first aid. Watching for the moment a conversation starts turning unhealthy. And for myself included, I've read this book before in the past. This book came out, and let me get the copyright date. The original copyright date was in 2002. So I do recall reading this book probably 2005 and 2008. So I've read this book, and obviously since then I have forgotten clearly many of the techniques, because I've gotten into heated conversations where I'm like, I know what to look for technically, but here we're talking about the trauma and recovering from things. In a perfect world, we would be, hey, you know what, I'm getting a little bit mad, let me just tone it down a little bit. Doesn't always happen. So we need to understand when we're engaging with people that there's a lot more going on beneath the layers. When we talk about violence, it's not necessarily the physical, the emotional tearing of the brain, whether it's like a paper cut worth or someone just stabbed you in the head. There is still damage, whether it's a little bit here. Because believe it or not, a paper cut, if it's not healed right, these things it's still a cut. It can get infected, and it can cause problems in your body if it's not handled or treated, correctly. If it's not given the right first aid. little small cuts can cause bigger problems. So when we sit here in the books, the authors use the term violence in conversation. We need to be really very. At first, I was like, well, that's kind of an extreme way of putting it. But I'm like, no, we really need to consider that if a person is going through emotional abuse and they don't feel safe and they're constantly being put down and attacked and or cut down for whatever reason, it's going to affect their brain and the way that they handle other conversations with people. And if they, again, they don't feel safe or trusted, if their ideas aren't respected or received, in the long run, it could end up being physical violence. So we need to take this very, very cautiously, and every conversation needs to be taken with caution, like with a lot more respect. And I'm going to add another one of my personal notes, nothing to do with the book, at least not that I've read so far. But there was a time where, like, if you wanted to call someone on the phone, if you were having an argument, you know, we had the pay phones for a while. Before that, you know, you had to call the operator. And today we've got text messages, instant messaging, phone calls, cell phones, so many different ways to connect with people. You can talk to Alexa and have her send a message for you. And the thing is, though, we're not really stopping to think about what we're actually saying before it comes out. We're not really sitting with the emotions and feelings, and we're so quick to, like, I'm just going to jump into this or speak this or say that. So as a result, I think this is part of the reasons why it's so difficult for someone to stop and realize what's actually going on, to step out and to see what's happening and why they're getting so upset. So just wanted to bring up those different side notes, completely not in the original outline, but felt noteworthy to share that the importance of really understanding where you're coming from, each person, and the people that we're encountering, where they're coming from. We need to be able to recognize, is the environment safe? Is the conversation healthy? Are the ideas flowing? Are people getting defensive, or are they shutting down? What's going on? Why is this happening? What can I do to step out of it and redirect the conversation so that we can get our goals accomplished, which is to have a healthy flow of dialogue, uninterrupted, where everyone can speak freely without feeling like their ideas aren't being heard, or they're going to get shut down, or their needs aren't being met. So hopefully you took something from that. You know what, that took a little bit longer than I expected, so I'll just go ahead and call that segment 3. And I will do an official closing right now. So thank you very much for tuning in and staying. It was up to 27 minutes, that's what I was saying. That I figured it was going to be a little bit longer today. So, like I said earlier, you've been listening to that girl, Jenna Kirisawa. I'm using Anchor FM. I also have my new website, yourpresentreality.com, as well as Google's Blogspot, where I have the outline of this podcast, and I'll be hopping on hopping on TikTok to do a couple of 3-minute videos. So I appreciate any person who's listening to this or watching it, who's ever skimmed through the outline. Any followers out there, definitely appreciate the feedback, support. And if you want more content, definitely please like and subscribe, and any ideas are appreciated. And yeah, with that, I apologize as always if I've wasted your time, and God's peace.